This episode of Third Degree, the podcast, is dedicated to Christine Gardner, the Inferno mom from the early days of the Dallas Burn. Rest in peace.
Yeah. Woo. Ooh. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Well, hello there, DFW area soccer curious fan you. Welcome to another episode of Third Degree Podcast. He's always ready. It's Dan Crooke. Howdy, Dan.
That is an absolute bold-faced lie.
Buzz said you were always ready.
No, I didn't.
And your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder, thirddegree.net, and the original soccer influencer himself, Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Hey, fellas, I'm glad y'all are here because we have a lot of time to fill. There's nothing really to talk about.
Holy crackers, Buzz! Did you burn through an entire red crayon and then keep going by slicing your finger open and finishing off the run sheet in Buzz blood?
Yeah, I had to go back to the store twice to get another red crayon. It was incredible.
Christ almighty, there's no way. I'm just forewarning the curious listener, this will not be an hour-long podcast.
Well, I mean, there are times in the past where we've done like 30 minutes on just the MLSPA salary drop. And that came out in a week when there was two games and it's like, some of this stuff may get talked about again in the future because it'll be hard to do some justice on some of it because we're going to have to go, there's so much of it today.
Crikeys. It is a lot. It is too much. It's like soccer in general around here. There's too much damn soccer right now. Much.
Oh, did you see that thing about the Gold 10 Cup attendance being so down across the board? Yeah, it's just ridiculous. We warned everybody about it.
The Mexico game at AT&T was like the second lowest attended Mexico national team game in the United States for the last 10, 15 years?
Yeah.
It was the second worst at AT&T ever.
Yeah, it was ridiculous.
And that was at the time the second best attended game at the Gold Cup.
Yeah.
And the low key takeaway is all the players talking about how ridiculous hot it is and how terrible the fields are. So this World Cup could be terrible. It could be ass.
Yeah, I don't think any of the fields are actually World Cup installations though. So
I hope not, but it's causing panic. People are worried about it.
I'm sure they are. They're always worried about fields. All right. Yes. So let's get into all of this because it has been one super historically, and I'm just going to say it, shitty week for Football Club Dallas. When we last spoke, we looked at the schedule and said, 2 home games.
Yeah.
Against teams that are on road trips themselves, I think weren't both teams on back-to-back road trips or multiple road trip stretches.
Yeah, San Diego was on 3.
Yeah, I mean, it just felt like this was a really good opportunity to collect points until you remember FC Dallas sucks at home this season in the most curious and bizarre of ways, and in 2 very, very different ways, both to San Jose last Wednesday and then San Diego on Saturday night. Dallas ends up the weekend with exactly 0 points, Buzz.
Yeah, on a macro level, San Jose is a breakdown that happens because you played kids. And as we've always talked about, as important as it is to play kids, they are going to make mistakes. That's the point in playing them, is that they make mistakes and they learn and you put them under pressure and hopefully they get better. So some of that's just the pain of how that's going to be. San Diego, on the other hand, was what happens when you play a team that's really, really good and it's in first place and they have their DPs come in and make huge impact, even when they're coming off injuries. And tiny little mistakes make the difference between a Dallas team that played relatively well, but in the tiny moments when they needed a DP to win the game, he didn't. They had tiny moments when they needed a player to come up on defense, he didn't, and their guys got it done. And that was the difference in the game. 1 goal difference. I mean, there's a domination in possession, yes, but one of these teams they both want it that way. San Diego wants the ball and Dallas doesn't. So that doesn't matter. What matters was the goal creating chances and the goals that were scored. And they had a guy who came through and Dallas didn't.
Is there anything to the idea that in the last 2 games alone, they've given up 7 goals? In the last 3 games, which does include a win, they've given up 9 goals. And in the last 5 games, which includes a 0-0 draw against Philly, But in the Cincinnati game, they gave up another 3 goals. So was it 12 goals in 5 games?
Yeah, this team is not good enough to be good on offense and defense at the same time. They can
Okay, stop. Just stop right there. That's a real problem, Buzz.
It is a real problem.
I know it's like trying to, do one thing with your left hand and something different with your right foot or whatever it is. It's like being a drummer, but for a soccer team, being able to play both offense and defense is kind of a fundamental soccer for dummies concept, I think.
Look, we can talk about the last 3 or 4 games. You can go all the way back to Kansas City game, right? When they did not have Ramiro, they did not have Kayik, generally speaking, over this run. You're playing a bunch of 8s in midfield, right? The possession through the middle is better. Transition game is better. Dallas is scoring 3-4 goals a game. It looks great, but the defense is crap, right? The guys are missing. You don't have any 6s. So you're giving up the same amount of games. If you want to go back to when you're holding Philadelphia to a 0-0 draw, you're playing 2 or 3 6s. Remember when it was Show, Ramiro, and Kayik? It was like 666. Like those games, they were able to shut people out or held Seattle to 1 goal, right? You can't do both with this team. It's not good enough to do both. You can pick one or you can pick the other. Mainly through the midfield is the issue because your front has got a couple of guys that are good. If everybody's healthy, your defense has got a couple of guys that are all right. The midfield is either all defense or all offense, and there's nothing in between.
Dan, several weeks ago, when this season got off to its super crappy start, I asked you how you were feeling. You're like, you know what? I really don't care. I'm having fun. These games the team's a little more exciting. The games are kind of fun. I don't care. I'm just wondering, at this point, are you still having fun?
Saturday was fun. The San Jose game was dog shit.
Oh, wait, I think both of those losses for different reasons are frustrating, angering, and makes you want to throw something at the television. Because giving up that goal in the 90s kabillionth minute to lose 3-2 at home against a San Diego B team is pretty maddening, man. Is that really fun? Does that qualify as fun?
In the quality of the overall game. But it was a game where FC Dallas was actually in it. They were, they did look the more likely to get the winner very late on up until the gut punch. Yeah, I mean, it was enjoyable enough.
I really feel like this entire first 7 minutes of this episode are us just justifying our misery.
I mean, here's the thing. You're either like watching soccer or you just really want to watch the absolute elite and you don't really care about the sport itself. You take what you can out of games at any level, whether it's watching a player develop, whether it's, kind of picking up things tactically. It's all entertainment value of some kind.
I mean this very genuinely. This is why I love Dan's perspective on this, because Dan comes from watching a club really, really, really struggle and almost go out of business and get relegated multiple times, go way up the chain, make it all the way to the Premier League, and then fall back down 2 straight relegations. I mean, the man has skins on the wall. So if you can find fun in it, Dan, I need to learn to find fun in it. And that's my lesson and inspiration I get from you.
Well, I mean, it's not even looting. It's, if you enjoy watching the game enough and on a Saturday I feel like, I'll go watch McKinney, I'll go watch Denton, Texoma, whoever. It's, you're doing it because you want to watch it. You enjoy watching it. It's not, the frustration kind of goes out the window at that point.
Yeah.
Peter, you and I have been questioned many times. Is like, why do you guys still do this? Like after 27 years now, our 28th season, and the answer, and like, how have you lost faith or how have you given up completely? Well, the answer is because we grew up with nothing. We didn't have pro soccer. We had indoor, but that's not the same game.
Sir, the Tornadoes would like to speak with you.
Well, yeah, but I was 12 when that went away, dude. So
yeah, I know.
Like I spent like 12 is when I was really only just becoming aware of the idea that there was a professional game at all and that it was really good. And then we had this humongous gap of like, by the time I was in college, I was like, oh yeah, outdoor professional soccer is an actual thing. And then, at like 25-ish or 26, here comes the professional league. And so having had a team to like Dan says, like the enjoyment for me is just having a Division I professional soccer to get to watch all the time. Like the fact that they never win anything doesn't bother me because I get to watch. Now, as we go forward and more professional teams are coming to this market, it's possible that my fandom might be up for grabs because one team might deliver more like of the kind of product I like or the kind of fandom that I like or whatever it is. But in the meantime, like it's the Division I game that we have. And so I'll be watching it.
Yeah, it has been interesting in the last couple of weeks because obviously, not to make this about me, but here I go. I'm pretty famous for being pessimistic about the state
What?
of all things Football Club Dallas.
Come on.
And I try to defend myself that is based on 30 years of just watching this team kind of fall on its face and blow it and just never get to that pinnacle of winning MLS Cup, which is the only thing I care about. I don't care about anything else other than, and that's just me. I'm not saying anybody else should have the same wants out of this club that I do. But it has been interesting to watch a younger, newer generation of fans who by and large have made fun of me for being pessimistic, now suddenly all starting to show their age themselves after cycle after, now that we're in cycle number 3 of a recent rebuild and things like that, and just kind of perpetual levels of disappointment.
Yeah, I think there have been times when we've had new fans coming in and finding this team, and we say to them, go read the list first. Find out what you're in for. Get yourself a foundational understanding of this club, and then go forward with it from there.
Somebody asked me this over the weekend, like, where are you with this season? And I mean, you've continued the last couple of weeks to put out this kind of running chart of where we are in the season. 19 games of the season. What is it? 22 points? Is that what it is? 19 games, 22 points. And then you're trying to make comparisons to other historically bad seasons where the manager got fired. And this is the first one that I can think of where Dallas has a guy who literally is 19 games into his tenure. And this is where we're at. And I honestly don't know where the Hunts are going to go with this. But between that and the stadium rebuild, is this the perfect time to have a really down run with a new manager? Because you can only fill the stadium with 11,000 people and maybe only 80% of that shows up for games. I don't know.
The difference is that with Quill and all these other people that we're comparing is that it is the first season, what we assume is a multi-year contract. So just for reference, people that don't know, they don't follow me on Twitter, like it is week 19 and Quill has 21 points. 2024, which was when Nico was fired, through week 19 was 20 points. 2021, which is when Luigi was fired, through week 19 was 21 points. And then go back to 2003, which is the debacle of all debacles. They only had 13 points at this point after week 19, which shows you how bad that was. But like the only reason we do that is because these are the seasons that 4 other coach, Morrow's the other one, 2008, had 25 points, but he was long fired by then. The point is that Quill is putting up numbers that got 4 coaches fired. So people ask me all the time, is he going to get fired? Oh, it's a valid question. When you have the same sort of points that got people fired, is he going to get fired? And the bottom line is, like, I think in the first year of a contract, not likely. But the other difference is that so far his team has not quit on him, right? There's ray of light of the road record makes you think that there is performance capability in this team. And then you watch the games and it's not a give up. Those guys are still fighting, and give up is a big, big sign of what gets people fired. That and when the Clarks got embarrassed about Morrow that time, like Cannon earlier in the season. So,
Dan, you were at both the last 2 games. You saw this in person for yourself. Where do you think the team is, and where is your head as far as this season has gone?
I mean, in terms of progression, they are arguably making more individual errors now than earlier in the season. There's obviously been an issue with some kind of load fitness with the number of injuries that are popping up. You can't put them all down to contact injury. I'm struggling to see progression.
And do you put that on Quill?
Not entirely. I mean, obviously he wasn't given a roster to succeed. He was given a first-year rebuild, missing many parts, and then throwing a spanner in the works of being given Lucho to then have to figure out how he fits in, which then moves half the team around out of positions that they can actually play in. Yeah, I mean, there have been too many times where there's talk about mentality and not switching on. The San Jose game, right? Eric said the game was lost in the first 10 minutes of the second half. That's the first 10 minutes after you gave a team talk. That's when they should really be switched on. So yeah, there's obviously some some coaching teething problems there. Substitutions on Saturday. That felt a little odd. Kind of shoehorning Bernie in when he just isn't doing anything. I mean, it was unfortunate to lose Nolan in addition to, everyone else who has been injured. But there was a little bit of second guessing towards the end. Didn't go back to the bench. Late on, pushing for a winner. Can totally see why you wouldn't want to necessarily rock the boat. But, you then go on to lose, and it's the immediate question of tired legs. Delgado was walking around the entire game. Lucho was walking around half the game. There's just a cluster between Zanata not delivering a good team, and then maybe the team not being used to the best of their capabilities for whatever reason, whether that's ownership, whether that's management, whatever.
Buzz, so I think this is a good point because, obviously most fans of this club are aware that part of this is the roster construction. We've talked endlessly about Zanata's performance in this role. And, when it became pretty clear that building a roster and going out and making additions versus selling and doing subtractions and making money, which clearly he's good at. And that's a big part of this, right? That's part of the entire business model of FC Dallas, is that component of. So it is very important. And I don't want to reduce that in any way. But when it feels like it was becoming clear that maybe this wasn't his strength, which was going out, scouting, finding new additions, and building a roster, he was allowed to go out and hire people to help him do that. Now, this is the first year of that, but I'm having a really, really hard time looking at what has happened so far this year. And maybe part of this is, maybe the real problem is the club just wasn't honest about what kind of rebuild this was, because they wanted to sell tickets. I mean, I get that. Like they can't come out and go, sorry, season, this is going to suck because we're in the middle of a rebuild.
Yeah, they're never saying that.
They never say that. So I guess really what I'm trying to help answer is the question I get a lot of: how much of this is Quill and how much of this is the front office and a bad roster construction? I think the answer is it's big parts of both and a giant dose of Dan Hunt, who's the one that decided all of those things together.
Yeah. The thing you have to,
I just want to note in the background that Dan is nodding furiously in my in support of my statement. So there you go.
Yeah. The thing you have to remember about Quill in general is that he is a first year at MLS coach, and he'd only been a head coach in Mexico for 2 seasons. So like any first year MLS coach is going to have growing pains. You have to accept that in a first year coach. And so if you don't want those things, you have to go hire a veteran coach who's been around the league, and the Hunts don't do that. Is it because of the pay? Is it because of whatever else? You can think of any of the reasons you want to, but they haven't done that since Oscar, basically.
No.
And even Oscar, they would have grabbed themselves. It's just that they already had a coach when Oscar was ready to be a coach, or else they would have been Oscar, right? It really would have. You can look at Schultz Hyman, no experience in the pro game. Lots of experience in college, but none in the pro game. Morrow, no head coach experience. Colin Clark, no head coach experience. Jeffries, no head coach experience. If you're picking up on a theme at home, this is what they do. So like you have to expect there's going to be a certain amount of growing pains with the coach. So like you can't blame Quill for occasionally making a mistake. It's going to happen, just like when you play kids, it's going to happen. Now, does he learn from the mistakes? Does he improve? That's what you care about. So for me, most of this season is on the absolute awful roster construction. When you build a team without a cohesive plan for how you're going to play, to what the players are for, and how they're going to fit into a system, you're just going to get a pile of junk. And then you're asking, it's like dumping out a bag of Legos that aren't designed with one of those little booklets. It's like, here's a bunch of Legos, make a winning team out of it. And there's no instructions, there's no plan, there's no idea. It's like, okay, I'll do what I can, but I'm a first year coach out of the USL. It's like, what do you want? So like the roster is the problem. It doesn't have a third DP, number one, right? It has some guys that are really old that carry a lot of weight. They've made some poor choices in terms of who they dropped, in terms of who they brought in. It's just not an elite roster with incredibly massive imbalance. So the fact that Quill has managed to win some road games, which is incredible to me, is it's almost a minor miracle that he's even got as many points as he has.
Right.
When you look at the way this team plays and the way they've collapsed at home. So like, yeah, the dude occasionally make mistakes, but most of the time this season, I feel like when Quill's made a mistake, he's got, nope, that one was me. And he learns and he goes ahead. Now he's still not flawless. He's far away from flawless. But like I saw a lot of people talking about like Alvaro makes a mistake against San Jose. Man, Quill sucks. He should be fired. What are you talking about? It's the last center back he had left, and the guy's 20. And we told you he was a disaster at North Texas. Well, that's a little strong. We told you that he would make mistakes at North Texas exactly like he made in the San Jose game. Who else is he supposed to play at center back? It's not Quill's fault that he ran out of center backs. Right? It's not Quill's fault he has nobody in the midfield that can play a two-way game. It's not Quill's fault that Acosta doesn't play any defense at all, so you have to play this screwy lopsided formation because you don't have a second wing, you don't have a real six that can play a two-way game, and you don't have a starting center back. There's no backups on the outside on either side. I mean, that's not fair. We've decided Norris can actually play left back. It's just they haven't been since Marco came back. They haven't used him, so I keep forgetting. But for the most part, like the roster is a disaster. And so like, I think it's a minor miracle Quill's even done what he has. Like to me, it's an endorsement for the guy actually has potential, not like, oh, Quill sucks. It's like, dude, no one would, Bruce Arena wouldn't win with this roster. He would get rid of 80% of the players and then he would win.
One thing I heard someone say that kind of really rang true was, obviously you see some social media noise about Quill, which unjustified. I heard someone say the other day, well, with the success he had at USL League One, USL Championship, obviously, some coaches can hit a level, but those are the fundamentals of it that you can obviously see he has and will take into MLS, whether that's this season or another season. I really just keep going back to this whole like you say, the roster construction, there is that kind of, it's not mutually exclusive to say that they had a great transfer window, but it was window one of a fairly long build. And then like happened with Franco Jara, oh, there's a shiny toy, let me drop him in. And suddenly, hey, you have to win now with this nothing.
See, I think we're going to get to a point by the end of the season where we're going to ask this question: should they have signed Lucho Acosta?
I'm already at that point.
Well, okay, fair, and I think you and I and Dan probably are, but I think but I also think there's an argument to be made, Buzz, that if you were to rewind and go back to January or February of this year, and you found out that they passed on Lucho Acosta, the fan base and you and I and Dan would probably be going, what the F are you doing? He's an MLS VP. I mean, I don't think there's a reasonable way around that. If you had him at your disposal and you could have signed him for what you signed him for,
you'd do it 10 times out of 10.
I think, you would.
If you can go back to the winter, if someone wants to, and listen to the podcast and the roster problems that are in this team, we laid out for you. Three guys sitting on a sofa.
Yep.
We laid out for you that they were clear and obvious.
Sir, I'm in a chair.
Yeah, okay, chair. You know what I mean? So am I, metaphorically.
With a pillow behind me because my back hurts.
We're actually on the same sofa, which is making it really weird.
Really uncomfortable. Stop touching my knee. So then when the idea of Lucho Acosta came out, we all who had seen Lucho Acosta highlights were like, hey, that doesn't sound like a terrible idea. That's a guy who's a 10 that you can build a team around for 3 or 4 seasons. And then he got here and you're like, oh, he's like an off striker 10. He's not going to sit in like Mario Diaz and sit in zone 14 and pull strings. And so we all thought, okay, you're going to get a bump. We talked about it. We were like wooden spoon until they got him. And they were like, oh, getting him pushes them to where they should be able to compete for the bottom of the playoffs. We had them at 7 through 9, I think is where we predicted they would be post Acosta. But here's the thing. You can think that that's a great decision. And then you get into this season, it's okay to reevaluate and say, you know what? He's not a perfect match for the coach we have and the way the coach wants to play. And so you'll need to make a decision. And honestly, someone at the club needs to make this decision. Who is more important? It's not like Quill and Acosta are fighting with each other or anything like that, but like there's a little bit of a disconnect there in which way you want to go, which way you want to play. And it may be necessary to reevaluate Acosta or Quill and say, do I want to build around Acosta for 3 years? Then I need a different coach, or I need a different system, or I need a different group of players around him, or maybe Acosta's not the guy I need to be the point guy in a 4-2-3-1 that Quill wants to play. You cannot play Acosta as the point in the triangle in your 4-2-3-1. You just can't do it. So what do you do? Which way do you go? Like you can reevaluate what you thought was a good idea and later on decide, well, you know what? It's not working.
Well, I know people listening to the pod probably wanted us to get into specifics about each of the San Jose and San Diego games, but I also feel like that's just beating a dead horse.
Well, speaking of dead horses, we should mention that Delgado was absolute trash against San Diego, which is unfortunate because he had 2 or 3 good games leading into that. But
well, I mean, I guess, is there anything about either game in particular that you guys wanted to pick on or talk about or, dig into? I can't. Both of them are incredibly frustrating for very different reasons.
Well, the most important takeaway for me is a couple of them. One is that if you can live with some Alvaro mistakes for a bit, he actually has a lot of potential, that we would have seen pay off in a couple of seasons maybe. But like the fact that he's getting some play now is fine, in terms of the context of where the team is. Number 2, Anderson Julio is just massive. Without him, this team is just garbage, which is weird because he's not a DP. He's not Musa. He's not Acosta. But yet when he's gone, it fell apart completely in both games.
Yeah.
And then, some guys that like adding guys in midfield who could transition play and link through made this team so much better offensively, but yet not having a real 6 that can protect your back line, particularly when it was in pieces, really showed. So like, some of these things are really obvious on a macro sense. And you're like, well, why can't they fix that? Well, just because they just don't have the people. You got to get people healthy. You got to make more additions. There's another window coming up. They're going to have a chance to do some things. Maybe they can get things right enough that they compete for that last spot in the playoffs. But, it's going to take, as Dan said, a couple of more windows. And so like the nitpicking of these 2 games doesn't really accomplish anything. We've known Bernie isn't bringing it right now. We know Leo Chu's not going to play. No idea why. We knew Kaique and Ramiro were going to be out. We knew that Leggett coming back was going to help them offensively get better. We knew Show was going to be gone. There's nothing without Iragude. They're a mess. There's nobody organizing. So far fans wandering all over the field with no concept of team defense. It's just, I yelled at the TV 10 times, Farfan, where the hell are you going? In that last game. So that's a lot, but those are.
And I'll go back to they can't play offense and defense at the same time.
Yep. Really good.
Is this team going to make the playoffs?
Not like it is right now. If you don't change, you have to change something in midfield to make the playoffs. It's not good enough in there. Now, in the long term, this is the problem. What's more important? If you're talking about like a 2 through 3 season build towards we want to compete, then you need a center back, number 1. But if you're talking about make the playoffs this season, you need something in the central midfield because Paxton's not it's not Paxton. And Ramiro, Kaique, whatever, neither one of those guys is good enough yet to be like your standalone 6. So like you've got to do something in the midfield if playoffs this year is the number 1 priority. It should not be, but it will be. It will be.
And also the news that we found out officially today that Show is no Mo.
Yeah, I mean, that was going to be the case. If he would have played this year like he played last year, maybe they would have done something. But after he came back from his illness, it's like there was no way. And the bottom line is like the transfer, the loan fee they paid for him is low enough. He was just a emergency replacement for losing Paxton. Like, grab a body and get him in here, and like once Paxton wasn't coming back, and then like, okay, shore it together.
So is that a Zanata signing that we hold against him, or we give him a pass on?
No, I actually think it's okay. Like for what he cost, I think that like the way he played last year, I think he would have been fine up until this point. The team actually would have been better. He was not anywhere near the player he was before he got sick. So like you can't blame Zanata for him getting sick like that. So like I actually think it's a relatively bargain buy of a relatively quality player that was a short term. The guys we were counting on never made it back healthy sort of signing. So I'm okay with that.
So as we head into the transfer window, are we all working on the premise that Dallas is going to make additions to this team?
Of course.
Ain't got much choice.
I don't know. They're in a rebuild. I mean,
yeah, but a rebuild means you're going to continue to build.
Yeah, this is the next window of your build. So they already have, by my math, 3 senior open roster spots and 2 open international spots, and you're probably going to sell Leo Chu in the next window. So like that'll be 4 in a U22 spot. So you could actually switch to another DP. Like they should have a boatload of Gamma Tam laying around. Remember, they had so much stuff at the beginning of the year. There's no way they use it all. They should have.
They had like 2 million left at the roster profiles.
Yeah, something like that. But that was those 2 million of the stuff for just this year. They have other. Remember, they changed the rule where stuff doesn't expire.
Out,
so that was just the expiring stuff. They got other crap. I mean, I don't have access to their books, but they should have other crap laying around that they can do stuff with. That plenty of ability to make moves. And as near as I can tell, 28 years of watching this crap, adding it up on a napkin, I'm pretty sure they got time. They got the ability to make some moves. They certainly are positioning themselves. They're moving pieces out and creating space. So you don't do that unless you're bringing in something.
Okay.
And just to follow that up really quickly, if a guy's a free agent right now, you can sign them in show spot right now. You don't have to wait for the window. The window is about transfers, not free agents. So I'm not saying this is happening, but hypothetically, you could sign Yaramendi tomorrow if you wanted to, because he's a free agent. So I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying that like they don't have to wait to July 27th to add players.
I think he's very busy over in Europe road racing.
Well, the last clip he posted was him doing soccer drills like he was getting ready to play. So I was like, oh, I'm sure he's just trying to show teams that he still can play. But and I'm not saying that would be the answer. I don't know that I want to give him 2 or 3 more years of, or whatever money he wants. I get it. There's complications. I'm just saying that non-specifically to Yaramendi, if there's some other player that's a free agent as of the window, like the last window, like if they came out of that window a free agent, you can sign them as a free agent now.
All right. Well, that would lead us into, and I apologize for anybody who's frustrated or disappointed we didn't really dig into either one of those games, but Christ almighty, what a beating. And we got way too much other stuff to talk about. So let's just move in. Let's just do it. Let's dump into the salary reveal that happened this week. Now, the biannual MLS Players Association reveal of the salaries and estimated salaries. Again, I think I always feel like we need to qualify this, that the way that this gets posted generally gets some pushback from the clubs as to its accuracy, but it always feels like a fair barrier or barometer, to kind of take player by player, club by club measurements.
Yeah, the most important thing to understand is that these are not the same as cap numbers, and they don't show transfer fees and things like that. But it's still interesting to see because you can quickly see players that are overpaid or underpaid. You can really quickly see slots in which people belong. The fact that Enes Salih's on 400K is a problem. Obviously, Irrigate on about 580 is an absolute steal. Like when you combine what we think his transfer fee was with what he's getting paid, it seems very clear that they weren't 100% sure that Irrigate was going to be a starter, because Ibiaga and Abubakar both get paid starter money for a non-DP center back, which is like 700K. And so Irrigate is getting paid like 200 below that. Just thought I'd tell you like what they really thought of him when they got him. Leo Chu on his money is obviously a serious problem, but we've talked about how that was going to go in terms of like, that's why they left him as a U22 so they could sell him.
Is there a backstory as to what happened to him this year that anybody's can talk about or has talked about?
Other than he got hurt, no. And now I honestly think they don't want to play him because they don't want him to get hurt again, and because they want to try and move him. So I don't have any information other than that.
Okay.
Ramiro on $500K is fine. That's like the ER and Mendy money. That's like a backup reserve money. That's not starter money. Leget's on $1 million. That's starter money. Ramiro's on backup money. The fact that he has to start is the problem, not what he's getting paid. So the ones that really raise red flags obviously are, and I hate this, but Paxton Pomykal on $1 million and 1.15,
real problem.
like that's going to go up next year. Like, and they have him under contract. It's not an option. So that's going to be like 1.2. That clearly is an issue one way or the other.
Can they buy him out this year?
No, they had to, my understanding is they had to use the buyout in the Paul Arriola move to get him off the books to Seattle. It's possible that's wrong, but I'm pretty sure that that's accurate. But so I don't think you can do Paxton. But you can next winter. Whether you'd have to do a technicality of it being an injury buyout versus a regular buyout, I don't know if that matters anymore. It used to matter, but I don't know if it matters anymore. It was a different sort of mechanic. And obviously Leggett on 800, it'll pop up probably to like 900 next year. At his age, that's an issue. Julio's fine. Shaq Moore's a little overpaid. But Kaique is fine. He's super cheap, like 150K. I mean, that just shows you again, like where they value him as an actual player. You can ignore like the 4 million says they're going to play him. But the 150,000 shows that they didn't think he was going to be a starter. Like people get paid what they think they're going to be worth. Delgado on 200 something. That's backup money. Siki's on backup money. Everybody makes a lot of sense. Martin Paz is a steal at 450. Really, that's crazy. Farfan's probably a little overpaid, but not by a lot, just a little. So, we need to compare him to Shaq Moore's 700. That tells you again what they think of the players specifically. So.
Dan, do you know where Dallas falls overall salary wage bill and rank? Is it still kind of dead in the middle as it has been the last few years?
It's 12.
12.
12. Yeah. 12
highest
out of 30.
It's remarkable. Well, a lot of it's Acosta. 3 million base and 4.2 guaranteed.
Sure. But I also feel like we've also been pretty clear that we don't feel like our frustration with the Hunt brothers is spending of late. It's how they spend it.
Yeah. Yeah. They have been willing to spend more on players lately. So you had to give them credit for that.
For sure. Yeah. 100.
I think the problem is the misses overpaying some guys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Who they pay the money to is the issue, not how much it is.
All right. Well, anything else about the salary?
Dan, anything in the for there that was crazy that you really?
No, I think you kind of got it all there. Obviously with Farfan, he's kind of a little further down the line in a contract, so you do get those escalators, which then that gets us into that discussion of when's the right time to cut loose on him.
I mean, 5 million base and Acosta and Musa together. I mean, that tells you where they think it all is.
And what's Augusto on?
Nothing. Super cheap.
A bag of Chick-fil-A?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on minimum.
Yeah. He's on the part of the roster that doesn't count on the cap. And since there was a transfer there, like there probably is a fee that was tammed or gammed out that he only shows up as like 80K, because otherwise you'd have to combine that into his this and that.
What'd you say Anderson Julio's at?
700, which is appropriate for his ability, I think.
I would agree with that.
There were people that thought he wasn't a starter coming here. I thought he was for sure. So that's starter money. I don't have a complaint about that. That's fine. That's bottom end starter money, really.
I think I think the question on him was exactly where we're at right now, which is because he's never really been a starter. Can his body hold up starting?
Yeah, that's a fair question.
Yeah. And I think that's still up in the air I think we'll have to wait till we get to the end of the season to find out if we know the answer. The other thing,
34 games is rare.
And I want to let the curious know, Buzz really beat himself up after literally minutes, maybe less than 30 minutes after the recording of last week's pod, because he realized he had forgotten to write in crayon on the run sheet the sale of Antonio Carrera.
It was in the Invisible Crown.
Yeah, we did a disservice, Antonio. Like that, he's a bright young goalkeeper with a future, and they sold him to Tigres like they sold Richard Sanchez to Tigres. So, or not Tigres, to somebody in Mexico. I think it's quite fair that Mexican clubs really value a really strong keeper that they've gotten from America that can play for Mexico, can play for those clubs, because they don't necessarily have great keepers, in my estimation, coming out of their systems down there for whatever reason. So somebody wanted him, and Dallas, he was now third here, and he wasn't really going to play. So good deal all the way around. I just felt like he deserved a comment.
How much of this is a reflection of the Collodi versus Carrera value, either short and or long term, and the fact that somebody said, hey, we'll pay you whatever they're willing to pay was more than they could pass up for Carrera?
Well, I think it's multifaceted, because I think Paz sort of being happy here and committing to Indonesia, and like we know that no one's going to come in for him at a higher level because of his feet, so they're probably fairly content he's going to stay for a bit. Collodi is a very reliable number 2. Like, you don't have to worry about that really. And also you have things like Nico Montoya, who's the latest academy goalkeeper that they've signed, has looked relatively solid. JT Harms down there has looked relatively solid. So like, you only need a third keeper if you're in trouble, and then you could just do an emergency deal. So like, the back end of the season, no big deal. You worry about a third keeper in the future. If somebody comes in and says, hey, we value the guy that you're not playing, here's a certain amount of money, and they've met the club's valuation, then you make the deal. Like, every deal is considered on its own merits. And I think, honestly, like, I think Tigres has been tracking him for a bit based on some people I talked to. So I think they've wanted him. And once he fell to third here, and once like he wasn't going to get minutes, like even when they put him down in North Texas, it was like, why are you putting him down there? That doesn't really help him much. So it's kind of a no-brainer at this point.
I'm sorry if you said this. Do we know how much the transfer fee was?
Nope.
Okay.
No, nobody knows. I've asked around. Nobody knows. So people that know aren't saying.
Do you secretly know and you just can't say it out loud?
No.
Can you hold it up with fingers on the camera and just let us know?
I honestly have no idea on this one. There's other guys that I do know, but I don't know this one.
Is it this many?
Yeah. No.
Millions?
I don't know. Yeah. It's 15 million.
Is it this many millions?
No, I don't know.
Okay.
You can stop
asking.
Is that? I really don't know.
That's $500,000.
Oh, I don't know. That's Captain Hook to me.
Hey.
Yeah, 2. I was just saying 2.
Oh.
No, I don't know how much it is. Stop asking. I don't know.
Dan, I think he knows, and he just doesn't want to tell us.
If you turn the mic off, I will tell you the same thing. I don't know.
But he will say that in between saying a number.
No.
11 pennies.
I found out why Kayik is $4 million. It turns out, I'm told, that they had him lined up at a lower number, and right before they were going to get him, a European club came in and offered more money. And so basically they panic bought, because they had sort of committed to Quill that they would go out and get like a 6 that plays a certain way he wants to play. And like, so at the last second, the other club was like, Gremio was like, hey, price just went up threefold. They were like, shit. And they paid it. So it was like a panic buy. That's the story I heard today. So
here's the thing.
We'll see if
I both at the same time do not want that to be true and want it to be true all at the same time for a weird set of reasons.
Based on what I see on the field, I would have walked away. I would have not have paid the $4 million. I mean, I like the kid, but $4 million to
$4 million for a kid that had played one pro game his entire life. I mean, it just seems ridiculous.
Seems ridiculous to me.
So, again, I'm working under the assumption that all of these guys that Zanata brought in from his brotherhood of friends in Brazil all know stuff that the rest of us don't know, because they're from down there and they've seen this guy come up through the system, and guy's got a lot of promise. $4 million?
Yeah, I mean, he needs work, like in his soccer brain. Like in 2 or 3 years, the kid could be great, but like right this minute, $4 million is an overpay. So it's but the story I heard today tells me that was a bit of a panic buy, and hopefully it all pays off in the long run, because that's a lot of money for that kid. A lot of money.
That's a lot of Dan Hunt money right there.
Yeah, well, we said they're willing to spend now more than they ever have been before, but maybe still just be smart about it. Don't just do it because you can.
Well, crikey, we're essentially halfway through the season, and it's not gone well. And And I honestly don't have any real sense that there's an opportunity for this to get better. I mean, they're going to have a stunningly good summer window for this team to get exponentially better, because it's not like there are pieces sitting on the sideline hurt that are, I mean, other than the center back, right? Other than Iragide, which is a big one. I'm not discounting that. And I'm assuming he's probably out for at least another 2 or 3 games. And they got some schedule issues. I mean, they've got another home trip coming up, and you're like, okay, well, they suck at home.
Yeah, rather go on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, the problem with a thing like the window, where you go, oh, we'll add 2-3 players, will be fine. Well, so will everybody else.
Right.
So it's like, but, there are definitely some I'm going to do a thing on it at some point before the window. There's definitely these 2 or 3 specific holes that they can fill that will let Quill better able to play the way he wants to play, and some very significant issues that they can solve. The bottom line is, though, are you playing for this year or are you playing for 3 years? Because you got to make a decision about which one it is, because if you go for very different players depending on which one of those 2 things you're doing.
All right.
And I don't know that they know.
And I also think part of our job is just to remind everybody, especially people who are relatively new, that summer editions very rarely make significantly positive impacts, not just in Dallas, but in, across MLS. Very rarely does a team in MLS sign a player in the summer and that player just turns out to be, a baller game changer for them or a season changer at the second half of the season. Just doesn't happen.
Yep.
Or it doesn't happen often. I should say it doesn't happen. It has happened in the past, but it doesn't happen very often, especially if it's a player that comes in from overseas. Sometimes within the league, it can have a good effect, but somebody coming in from England or South America very rarely has that kind of effect. So buckle up, kids. And yes, before we forget, because I did forget, Dallas does have a game this weekend. I don't know if we really want to talk about it because it feels like such a bummer. But Dallas does have a game this weekend, and again, it's a home game, so I don't know what to tell anybody. Minnesota doesn't suck. They've only lost 1 game in their last 7. So what do you think, Buzzard? What's going to happen? Who's he going to play?
Well, Anderson Julio won't play. Iragide took part in training, but I don't think he'll play this weekend.
Hey, wait, by the way, have we heard how long Anderson Julio's out for? Have we heard any kind of...
Not yet.
No, yeah.
Not yet. Not anything sort of official, but based on kind of what my vibe would be, was I'd put like a month, probably when you have that kind of muscle to be worried about, but that's just pure speculation. But Iragide was back in training, but he's not necessarily in line to play this week. Ramiro, however, came back to training last week, so he'll be available. Kaik off of red card is available. Ibiaga off of red card is available. So I think it makes perfect sense that Ibiaga is back in. Then you just have to decide, like, okay, was that enough of Alvaro, or do we like that enough that we put him in there with Ibiaga? See what happens. It probably depends on how important making the playoffs is again. So, you can decide yourself whether you think it'll be Abubakar or Alvaro. I think Ramiro comes back into midfield for sure, because they played Nolan in a 6. They're so desperate for a 6. They played Nolan. Great job by him in the first half of the game until he got hurt. So he's probably out too. Leggett will be in there. And then the question is, like, was Delgado so bad that you bring back Kaik? Or do you think that, okay, with Ramiro as a real 6, then Delgado will be more free to be a decent game? And otherwise it doesn't, Bernie came up injured too. So I found out today he missed training for a knock. I'm assuming Bernie will be out this weekend also. So, maybe we'll actually see Farrington get a shot. Maybe Leo Chu would get a shot. Although for Leo Chu to not play in the last 3 weeks since he's back off injury is really weird. So probably Farrington. So, it's got some guys back, but you still don't have a whole lot of choices. Not a lot of options out there because you got more guys that got hurt.
It's a home game, so there is no hope. I forgot. The other big news here in the Dallas soccer scene is the fact that after their first season, Dallas Trinity has sacked its manager, Pauline McDonald, and her assistant, Gavin Beath, is it pronounced, I believe? Dan, are you surprised by this news?
Surprised by the timing of it. Yeah, it's a bit difficult. Obviously, they had a struggle getting her into the country. Which I don't know if that was a visa overhang from her playing days or what, but Chris Bretchelli had the team started pretty well. Came in, a little bit of a slow introduction. I think towards the end of the season, that regular season title was half won, half lost in injuries in the back line, and half just in weird substitutions, weird decisions sometimes. Yeah, I mean, I feel like if you were going to cut loose, you cut loose a little bit sooner after the playoff loss. But no, I mean, to a degree, if you go from first to basically backing into the playoffs because of another team losing in the other side of the country, you're kind of asking for a little bit of trouble.
Do we feel like she got hard done by after the Lexi injury, and how much they put into making such a big deal out of his addition and how important she was going to be to their success?
I don't think she ever really fully gelled in the team and like cemented her place. Obviously, they were trying to build everything around her, but they had sufficient time to either change the system or to, really commit to. I mean, it ended up being Cameron Lancaster that was kind of her de facto replacement. They were playing, they had fine games. It wasn't like, if Miami lost Messi, not now they've got the other superstars, but, and suddenly they're just left with a bunch of spares. That certainly wasn't the case there. You still had Amber Brooks, you still had Ali Thornton leading the Golden Boot. You had Chema Ubagu, who was second in assists and first in key passes at the time, I think. You had a solid core of players. But yeah, I mean, it's, I don't think you can really put. It's easy to say lost star player, but when the star player hadn't really got into the role of being the star player.
I'm going to ask this question acknowledging that I am away from this from quite a distance, but I have this weird sense that Petrocelli is just going to end up managing this thing himself.
I don't think he wants to.
I know I don't think he wants to, but if they can't find the right person to do it, and with his track record and resume, wouldn't it kind of make sense for him to take it over? I mean, he ran it for the first 6-8 weeks of the season?
I talked to him after they made this change, and he talked about that, and he said no. Part of it, too, was the idea that they have a lot of ambition. And I asked him about this. Was this coach change performance related, like the record, like winning games? They said, well, in a sense, it's not necessarily wins and losses performance related. It's performance related in the sense that, like, how is the team progressing? How is the team playing? Are you making adjustments? So, like, response to the things are happening. Yes, Meza going down to Missimo, who long term I think Missimo's an upgrade, but short term it's not. And then she gets hurt. It's like, how do you adapt to that? Is anyone else getting better? Are we finding players that can fit certain roles? So, like, that was all related to performance. And so then I specifically asked him, I was like, you guys say you're getting a coach search right away, but why aren't you just going to coach? He's like, oh, I don't want to be the coach. They don't want me to be the coach. We're going to go out and try and find a coach that's got, hopefully one that's got pro experience, but we know the market's tough right now because there's other teams in our league and in NWSL looking for a coach. So we're going to do our best. And they're probably less panicked about it because they know that this is Chris, I'm paraphrasing, that I can coach if we have to get it started. So, like, they were not worried about the fact that their camp opens July 14th. They're not panicking about that because Chris can handle that. They're going to get the hire right, they hope. But the short to medium to long-term play is not for Petrocelli to be coaching. They don't want that, and he doesn't want that.
Which means he'll end up coaching.
I mean, he may have to by the time the season starts, but I'm sure at some point they'll hire somebody. If you're going to be a Division I organization, you don't need your TD to be your GM, whichever one is technically his title, to be your coach. This is not Sporting Kansas City.
There's also enough. There's enough college coaches that kind of do double duty. So, I mean, it wouldn't be beyond reason. There's a decent number of women's programs in the area that then brings in extra contacts in the local soccer scene, something that Pauline didn't have, which second half of the season, you really, compared to the first half of the season, the whole use of the academy players was such a such a wonderful thing to see. Second half of the season, it was Celie Strawn and Natalie Wagner's on the bench, nothing else.
Yeah, and to be fair, Chris has been at the higher ends of women's soccer for quite a while. He knows lots of people, so I don't think that they'll have trouble between the ambition that the club has and what a good job I think Chris does. I think hiring a coach is going to be easy. Like Trinity's issues are the club, the greater club around the team that needs to be built up and needs structure, not the coaching, the ability for Chris to find a coach. I think that'll be. For him, I think that's not going to be a problem.
Well, the other thing is they're going to have essentially at least half of a brand new team because along with all the other pieces they've lost over the course of the season due to moving back to NWSL or graduation or whatever, prom, they cut 9 players today.
Yeah, parted with, whether they actually cut them or whether their contracts ran out and they were on 1-year deals or their loans ran out. Like every one of these players is different. The one that surprised me was Julia Dorsey. I thought Dorsey had been fantastic all season on the right side. Like she was originally on loan from Charlotte, Dan. I don't remember, but like
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Wait, no. That was.
It doesn't matter. They let her go. They released her in the middle of the loan. And so Dallas just immediately signed her. And I actually thought she was a very solid, reliable piece coming out of right back or right center back if they were playing in the back three. So I don't know why they parted from her. All the rest of these players, I can understand why they parted from them, in terms of trying, like I said, they're ambitious. They want to try and get better. It's not like they cut Thornton or Brooks. They got Brooks for 1 more year probably, and that's about it. So they got to worry about 6 behind her. But, Dorsey's the only one of these moves that made me pause.
It was North Carolina Courage, by the way.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, Bobby.
It's funny in women's soccer because you see these things that you don't necessarily see in MLS. Julia Dorsey went to UNC. She played for. She went to North Carolina Courage. There's always the possibility of, hey, I'm not from Dallas. I have no ties to Dallas. I don't want to be in Dallas. The one that always kind of stuck out for me was Julie James, who was on the FC Dallas WPSL team. Really good midfielder. She played for the US under-23s, got drafted to the team that's now Gotham. I guess they were Sky Blue at the time. Had this amazing rookie season, and then she disappeared. Turned out she disappeared because her fiance was in the Navy. She had a reason that she had to move to Norfolk, Virginia. They got married, and ultimately that with the comparative salaries and everything in women's soccer, professional soccer just wasn't on the cards at that point. So sometimes it's not always just were they good enough.
Yeah, that's true.
And last Trinity note, congratulations to one of the Neal family members, Charlie, who was named Super League Executive of the Year. I bet that is going to be a very Tiffany crystal plaque of some sort for him to display on his shelf for all the rest of his life.
Well, I asked him to give me some, a rundown of like some of his accomplishments that got him this award. And I will give him some credit for a few that I was not aware of. And they finished first in the league in season tickets, first in the league in consumer products, which I assume means merch, and first in the league in viewership if you include the Barcelona friendly. So, on top of all the usual things of like first women's team, first friendly, for blah, blah, all this commercial stuff, like those 3 things actually for them to have done that well in terms of the sales and tickets side, I think those are the things that probably pushed him over the top because I didn't know that about this club. I mean, I knew they were sort of in the top sort of ish of the league, but to finish first in those 3 categories is actually, I think he probably fair that he got this award.
I think Charlie owes you and Dan both one of those really effing expensive hoodies for all the coverage and promotion and work that you've put into helping.
I will say that their merch is ridiculous.
Inform the population.
I've been told many times by the PR company that we make them look good.
Well, you do. You guys have put a tremendous amount of effort into making sure that the curious are told about Trinity, which is what the whole point to this thing, right? It's just getting harder because there's too many clubs to talk about. People are going to get shorted, and people are going to, yes, I can already tell this is going to become a problem in the future.
We had 2 more. We got 3 more coming at D1.
I know. Man, retirement is coming up fast for me, man. And it's probably at the perfect time. We can pass this off to some younger generation. Let them handle it from here on. Remember back when we only had 1 club to talk about?
I know. Back in the days, you wouldn't believe there was 1 team around here.
That's right.
Yeah.
North Texas North Texas hasn't played since like in the last few weeks, and they play Thursday.
Yeah. They play Thursday. Well, the reason they haven't played in the last few weeks, I think, is because they align the the MLS Next Pro schedule with the fact that the MLS Next, which is the Academy playoffs, were like last week. So I think nobody in the league hardly played, to be fair. Not that once Dallas sort of elevates a kid full time, they don't go back and forth a lot. But there were a couple that did. So I think that's why. So they have a game basically Thursday, and I don't really have a lot to say about them at this time. They're not. They've had some players pulled up to FC Dallas. They've kind of really hurt them in terms of their ability to win. And that really is the overall takeaway. It's like, what do you care about? Is it winning at North Texas, or is it developing at North Texas? And I think there's a greater conversation that has to be had about which one they seem to care about. And I think it's winning that they care about. And I'm not sure if that's not upside down. So I have some things to say about that. I think going forward in the future, maybe not today's the day, not for it, but there's some guys that should be playing that are not playing. It really confuses the tar out of me until you bring into the calculation that John Gall thinks he needs to win games.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a good burn, Buzz.
Yeah, it's the top
episode of burn. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, moving down the list. Texoma. Good Lord, break up the birds. Birds.
The birds.
Red River Birds. Texoma 6 straight in a row. How fantastic. 4-0-2. And then they lost finally a game, but it wasn't in the league. It was in the Cup, that cool USL Cup tournament. They lost 5-4 to Phoenix Rising, which is a championship team. So
with a heavily rotated team.
Yeah. And then there's this whole weird story about their CEO getting fired.
Yeah, they parted ways with their co-founding owner and CEO. So he's out as CEO. He's out of the board. Money's money, so he's still a minority owner, but he will not be involved. He's just, cash his check. So I don't have a whole lot of details. I don't have a lot to report, but I think what I can say is that it's not like, hey, I just don't want to do this anymore. I'll see you guys later. It's not that kind of move. Like, there's a reason why this happened. I don't have any details on what that reason is, but I don't think it's something that anyone's going to want to talk about. So I don't think we'll ever really have much reportable beyond the fact that they just ousted their co-owner, which ought to tell you something, right? That doesn't happen without cause.
I think I've got some insight into that.
Oh, hit me.
It's because he, like myself, is from Luton, Bedfordshire.
So's the coach, though.
Well, he's not from Luton. He just played and coached
there
for Luton.
Yeah. Had to purge the Luton? Yes.
As a fellow Lutonian, what kind of shenanigans would you like to speculate he has gotten himself into, Dan Crooke?
Oh, I don't know, but anytime I'm in the TSA line, especially in Atlanta, I'm always pulled into that little room for the whole second search.
Right. Okay. All right.
They see Luton on that passport, like, nah.
OccupationOnlyDance.com, and they ask questions.
That's right.
I will never understand that joke.
It's very funny, actually.
Yeah, it's
very, very funny. Chupacabras announced that they are doing now. So, is this an existing training facility at Craig's Ranch, or are they building their own thing there in partnership with Craig's Ranch?
They currently train at Craig's Ranch in McKinney, and the city is putting forward like this investment into making that a nicer, fancier training complex for them. So that's a good win. And through their first 5 home games, they had 16,000 fans come into their gates, which is incredible for that level of play. It's ridiculous. And they have one more home game to go. So it's not a level we cover extensively, but that is remarkable. And I think it's worthy of notice that that for whatever reason, Hitch has got something figured out, because he's not just there that he's doing it. They're doing good things in Lubbock. They're doing things at Annapolis. They're doing things down at Appalachia. Like, he's having this kind of success everywhere. But for it to happen in McKinney, like 10 feet from FC Dallas's backyard, I think is telling. It tells you that there's a part of the marketplace that FC Dallas is not reaching, that these people are fired up to go watch McKinney Chupacabras 3 divisions below FC Dallas. And whether it's price point or locality or name or whatever it is, the localness that Hitch is tapping into, that this is your club here, come to the brewery, come hang out, have a beer, let's go watch the game. You know what I mean? Like that works.
I think his approach is really like English clubs. It's not a team. It's actually, it's part of your community.
Yeah. Yeah. A simple example of that is letting them vote on the kits. Like, that kind of voting on the name.
Say that again.
He lets these teams that he runs let fans vote on which kit is going to be the kit.
Okay, yeah.
Or voting on the brand name, or come out and help us pick which beer is going to be our official beer. Like, Dan's right. Like, these clubs feel super hyper local, and it works at that level. They're really having success.
And he always does stuff like the raffle for the front of shirt sponsor. So everyone puts in X amount, and someone gets a great deal. But you've got all these local companies that are like, yeah, sure, I want to be involved. I'm going to throw a few dollars in.
All right, and then we'll end with some Atletico Dallas discussion, because I really I wrote this and posted it on social media because some of your Discord members were posting photos of them receiving their commemorative shirt mailings showing up at their house. And I you know me, I love a detail and I love attention to detail. And the fact that Atletico appears to have really gone beyond the Call of Duty in terms of bespoke packaging, like the actual shipping container that your shirt comes in is like a bespoke Atletico box and tape and all the little tchotchke stuff they throw in there with stickers, and the actual bag that it's in is all bespoke with the logo and stuff on it. And the shirts themselves, I haven't seen one in person yet, but I really think that they have done a super job on this stuff. And I also want to say, because when they started and launched this whole thing, however many weeks ago it was, I gave them a bit of a hard time about some of the imagery and language and kind of the backstory they were trying to sell us being very confusing. And I still think a lot of that was confusing back then. But some of the stuff they've put out more recently in trying to tell their story have made more sense, and I think they've gotten better at it. For example, on the shirts, naming the colors of the shirts, crude black, I think it is, and Texas topaz, tying those things together in terms of colors and why they pick those colors and how they relate to the area, all makes far more sense than kids playing in a concrete factory, but that's a different thing. So I dig that quite a bit, and I think that's really, really good. And I will also even admit that the logo with just the wolf and the snake, while neither one of those things make any sense to me anymore today than it did back then, the quality of it and the fact that it doesn't say Dallas anywhere, I have to admit, it's starting to get to me.
Sorry, gets you?
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing I find most interesting at this stage about this particular group is how responsive they are. How, like, when they do something, the audience reaction will tweak them. They'll slide, they'll tweak, they'll work, they'll respond to what people respond to. And like so many times with, and not to draw direct comparisons, but so many times with FC Dallas goes, we got this great idea. Here it is. And everyone goes, whatever. And Dallas goes, nope, it's great. You know what I mean? Like this club, this Atletico guys, like everyone's like, ooh, that's great. Except for maybe this one little part. And they go, you're right. That one little part, let's push that away and we'll go with this thing. That responsiveness is fascinating. And maybe it's because they're a small group, but like, I hope they keep that responsiveness to their audience going, because FC Dallas has left a hole. FC Dallas's response to the Hispanic market, the Central Dallas market, the people they abandoned in air quotes when they left the Cotton Bowl, that audience is ripe and available, and Atletico could pick it up with the right game plan. And so far they seem to be really executing. I think it's impressive.
I think this is where backgrounds come into play a lot. The Hunts operate a team as if they're trying to market to people in Highland Park, just like themselves. Sam Morton Atletico's from the the advertising world where you have to be on the button of what people actually resonate with and react to that. So it's
a radio guy, even, Peter. You should love him.
Well, there are a lot of radio guys I don't like at all.
That's fair.
And there are a lot of, and let me also say, there are a lot of radio people who don't like me. So that's a two-way street.
Yeah.
So,
not just radio, podcast too.
Just because you're in radio or podcasting doesn't mean people instantly like you in the industry. That's for sure. I just remember, Dan, back in the day, and I don't know if this holds true in 2025, but part of the Dallas Burns original problem, along with the fact that it didn't have an owner per se, it was kind of like the redheaded stepchild of the league, was that it was run, Andy has talked a lot about the fact that the Dallas Burn back in the day, year in and year out, had the league's best walk-up numbers year after year, and it wasn't even close. Like the walk-up audience for the Cotton Bowl and the Dallas Burn from 96 through 99 or whatever that time period was really, really good. But as was told to me at the time, you can't make a business on walk-up. You just can't. And that's why season ticket sales are so important. And at the same time, Dallas's season ticket numbers were really abysmal in relation to the rest of the league. And so I that's the thing. That's what I think Atletico's, that's the calculation or the trick they've got to solve, is how do you get that audience not to just be a walk-up day of game audience and actually commit to the club in terms of season tickets, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, that's something that the Hunts have inherited through the NFL and the other major sports teams in the United States, leagues in the United States. And the reason that is that being able to have predictable, reliable season sales numbers and budgeting that lasts the whole year is really, really important. And the volatility of single game walk-up sales is the issue for those major clubs. And so that's why it's difficult to build a business model on a volatile walk-up ticket base that the minute it's raining, only 2,000 people show up. Whereas if those 15,000 people are all season ticket holders, you get the money even if they don't come. So that's why that happens. And that's why Peter says, okay, how are they going to handle that? Like their core market might be a little less season ticket based and more walk-up based. It'll be an interesting question to watch as they go forward.
This is partly understanding your market. A lot of the whole shunning the Hispanic community, that is something that's prevalent, is walk-up sales. You don't base your season budget on walk-up sales, you base it on season tickets. But if you understand and cultivate the audience, then maybe that has to become part of life. Maybe it becomes you're selling not just full season tickets, but you're selling half season tickets, 6-game packages, whatever else it needs to be to kind of to get that medium term income as well.
Yeah, I do believe, and I don't want to completely say I'm 100% accurate about this because I'm going to have to go back and talk to Andy to get the full story, but I believe that original Dallas Burn staff not only did those things, but they also had worked incredibly hard to build that community. Andy in particular, Andy obviously is bilingual. English, by the way, is his second language. Actually, I think English is his third language. It's Spanish, Portuguese, and then English. And he understood that community as well as anybody in the soccer business, and still does to this day in this market. And so I think and maybe it'd be worth having him on the pod, or I'll bring it up on the kick around next time if I ever get to see him again on the show, is have that conversation with him is about the difficulties of connecting with the Hispanic or Latino audience in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and how Atletico can be successful, because I do think there's an argument to be made that particular community just isn't a season ticket buying community as a primary setup. Like you have to figure that out. And I do think that's going to be part of the trick for them, is how do they balance those things together? How do they serve that community? And then also at the same time, find the other community of soccer fans who are willing to go to the Cotton Bowl A. That's a huge thing, right? And I think, and again, I am very impressed by their commitment to making the Cotton Bowl cool again. Like they've clearly started setting the stage for building that story as to why the Cotton Bowl is cool and a place to go watch soccer. I'm all in on that. I think that's a great campaign to spearhead. But they're going to have to turn that into a viable business if they want this to be super, especially if USL Premier becomes a thing and suddenly now they're competing head-to-head really directly with Major League Soccer and FC Dallas.
Yeah, and they don't have the strategic use of fake Leonel Alvarez anymore
to you want to win me over? You sign Leonel Alvarez as your inaugural coach of Atletico Dallas.
Zarco?
Well, yeah. Leonel in particular.
Leonel would be more hype, yeah.
Right. And then his fake twin brother as his assistant coach would be pretty kick-ass too.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting questions as they go forward to watch them try and deal with, watch them try and figure out.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good question.
Well, have either one of you seen either of the blue or the black shirts in person yet?
Not in person. Mine has not come yet.
Oh. So. Okay. All right.
We should mention that one other news item for them, though, is that we failed to mention this last podcast, is they got their training ground approved by the city of Garland. That $70 million complex.
Oh, right. Yes.
Offices, that got approved. So, second win after the Cotton Bowl MoneyGram thing. The week later, they had another win of the Garland training ground. So they're moving forward with everything. So
crazy. And when are we going to find out about Fort Worth?
That is a good question. I know that sometime in the next whatever, I haven't looked, but the Farrington Field thing is up for city council approval. So, cross your fingers maybe that if that gets approved, maybe we'll actually finally hear something. They seem to be perfectly content to let Atletico Dallas get out there and attract a lot of the early kerfuffle and sort of wait and see what happens a little bit and manage their entry. So we haven't learned anything new since the leak of the images on that YouTube video that got made private after we found the images of the stadium and found the URL with their, confirming the women's team that we were kind of thinking was happening, but got confirmed. So since then we've had nothing new. So, but we're still trying to figure it out.
Well, I'm pretty impressed that we got through that entire incredibly long run sheet, the longest run sheet in Third Degree podcast history, in an hour and 16 minutes. But I am going to throw one more thing in here real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I swear a few weeks ago, this rumor started running around that both the Mesquite or Texas Outlaws and the Dallas Sidekicks were kaput.
Yeah.
And it was received poorly by the league itself. And the league put out a statement saying, we can neither affirm nor deny this and don't believe anything until we announce anything.
Yep.
But I think we had all heard that in the win that it was pretty clear that neither one of these things was going to continue to exist. And I haven't heard a peep about it since then.
Yeah. Well, here's what happened. I've been under the operating principle that Outlaws were gone, period.
Right.
That their team got absorbed by some owners and it was going to be out.
I was of that same impression.
Yeah. And then, so I was surprised when this story got leaked that looked like a press release that had been written. This press release or whatever got leaked that the Sidekicks were folding too. What happened is not only did the league say, hey, if it's not from us, it's not official. They started threatening to sue the pants off of everybody. So people that leaked that stuff had to retract it, and pull it back and say, hey, that was bad stuff.
Was it a media outlet that leaked it?
No, I don't know how it got out. I don't know how it came out. It's probably somebody that works for one of those teams gave it to somebody, a fan or something. I'm not involved. I don't know. And I don't want to know because I don't want to get sued, but that's the factual history of what happened. Now, we have always been convinced the Outlaws were coming back. Based on some questions I asked, I think the Sidekicks thing is true also. I don't think the Sidekicks are coming back.
Okay, wait. You just said you always believed the Outlaws were coming back.
We're not coming back.
Oh, we're not coming back.
Say that.
Okay.
Sorry, I misspoke there. Since the Outlaws were basically taken over by the two other teams, their owners who absorbed their players, basically, I've been convinced the Outlaws were done and we're not going to come back. The Sidekicks was a surprise. And some questions I have asked have led me to believe that the Sidekicks are, if nothing else, on hiatus. Now, I can't prove it and I can't source anybody, but that's what I now believe to be true. So I don't think either one of those teams will be back. It's just a question of time when MASL will release that and report that stuff, probably before their next season starts, which is probably usually in January. I can't remember when it is. It's late and it's in the winter. So we'll find out eventually, but I'm pretty confident in my belief that those teams won't be back regardless of any reporting contrary to that. Is that fair? It's not a very good cleanup, but that's the best we got at this point.
No, I mean, all
sued.
the noise that I've heard is that they're both done for, but I also don't want to, I don't know that to be true. And I don't know if everybody's just repeating the same wrong rumor. That's what I can't figure out.
No, I think like my belief on that stuff is based on anecdotal evidence of like employees and players and things like that.
Okay.
Like, so I'm not just repeating a rumor. I'm adding crap up in my head and based on what I know and saying like, I don't think they're coming back. You know, it's just, we're just waiting for, I wasn't aware it was happening with the Sidekicks, but then after that I went and asked around and I've got, okay, yeah, no, it's.
I wonder if there's anybody ever got a leftover long sleeve throwback Dallas Sidekicks shirt that I could never get them to sell me. Leftover.
I know who you can ask, but I don't know what the answer is going to be.
No. I tried like 4 times to buy one and I was always told no.
Like, do you know Eddie Puskarich?
Yeah, of course I know Eddie.
Yeah, call Ed.
Okay.
He might be able to hook you up.
All right. I don't think there's any left, but they were
Otherwise,
sweet.
just wait another 4 years until they reboot for the 15th time.
Right. Somebody else.
Yeah, the Sidekicks brand has value. So like somebody will bring it up. Somebody will pick it up eventually. You know, I mean, hell, use that name for an outdoor team. People know the brand. It doesn't matter what team in or outdoor.
Right. Okay, boys. I think we've done a job well done.
Well, let me throw out a shout out to Emma Tuamasi, who signed with Piast Gliwice in Poland. So he got a gig. I've never heard of that club, but it's the middle of the first division in Poland. So he's playing again. So good on Emma. Finally got a spot.
Good for him.
Yep.
Wow, that's some work by an agent right there.
Yeah, I mean, got a spot. So I don't think he wanted to go to the USL Championship. But he probably could have easily, but he probably wanted to try something different. So hey, whatever, have an adventure.
Yeah, absolutely.
See where it gets you.
Yes.
Get out on the field, get some tape, see who else calls, you know, whatever.
Yes.
Big world. Lots of places to play. Yeah.
One of my teammates' daughters just graduated. She was the captain at UT, and she's playing for a team in the Irish First Division.
Awesome. Yeah. Fun.
And, you know, she's probably not making enough to pay rent, but man, I think she's having a blast playing over there.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, all right. What else? Anything else? Dan, you got anything else you want to talk about?
I do not.
Your summer trim, by the way, looks quite good. Your beard, your hair, you're looking quite tight and ready for the hot summer days.
Thank you very much.
I mean, the beard's
aerodynamic.
Yeah? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good. Dan's got a lot of work to do. Buzz and I, not so much. We're boring compared to Dan.
Yeah.
All right,
Get
Dan.
to make adverts for Chinese magazines. Yay.
Good Lord.
If they pay you, then go at it, man.
Oh, no. It's an American company. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Money's there.
You're going to get paid in Labubus, aren't you? All right. Well, thank you, Dan. I appreciate you for being here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Buzzard, as always. You know, you asked this question at the beginning. The question we get asked, why do we continue to do this all the time? Why haven't we?
What's that?
And the answer to the question is because we love doing this. We love,
fun.
We do love FC Dallas, whether it looks like it or not. And 2, I think we have a lot of fun doing this, the 3 of us. We're old friends.
We do.
Yeah.
Hopefully your Musers thing is going well, buddy.
I can't talk about that publicly.
Oh, is it top secret? Oh,
No, it's not top secret. I just nobody listening to this pod knows what you're talking about. But
can't talk about Fight Club. Okay, I'm with
no,
you.
I can talk about it. It's just I don't think anybody would really be interested in it. So,
Well, it's the wrong podcast. I was just saying good luck.
well,
Hopefully it's
thank
going
you.
well.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's gone very well so far. It's been a huge hit.
Nice. Damn it.
Huh?
I can't afford it if you're huge.
Just wait until Wiggle Butts take off.
I guess I gotta call Owen.
If Buzz's Discord member Eddie doesn't get me a cease and desist letter from
Sam replied to that.
from Atletico, have you seen what he did?
Yeah, and
Dan?
Sam replied.
Did you see?
Oh.
So those who listening, Eddie, who is very enthusiastic about Wigglebutt and has bought some product already, has begun like a marketing campaign for me, unbeknownst to me, where he's essentially taking all of Atletico's marketing and rebranding it as Wigglebutt.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, you're gonna get me sued. And Sam Morton from Atletico wrote back, maybe on Twitter, maybe with a smiley face. Credit to him. So maybe he is a nice radio guy after all. Okay, very good. Well, thanks, guys. Yes, and don't forget to go buy some Wigglebutt merch. It's before I'm told I can't sell it anymore.
Yeah. Last week's pod sponsor, by the way. You missed it.
Yes, by the way, I meant to tell you, Buzz. I didn't know about that until I listened to it the other day. Thank you for doing that.
Just a surprise for you. Yeah.
It's a bonus. It's a throw in.
Yeah.
And thank you, DFW Soccer Curious. We love and adore you. And we will speak to you next week, hopefully with better FC Dallas outcomes. We'll speak to you next week on another episode of Third Degree, the podcast.
Get stuck in and up the butt.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.